So today we're going to talk about red dye. What is it you said? They call it dye for a reason?
Dye, yeah. So the Reds coming to get you. When I was in college, I was taking a class on the Soviet Union. And my professor, he was an old guy and he was hysterical, but we would chant things. And one of the things he'd always chant is better dead. And then the whole class would go red.
Oh, wow.
Better dead than red.
Wow, that's pretty intense. So let's start with a few things that, that contain red dye. Kraft barbecue sauce, lasagna hamburger helper, Del Monte fruit salad, nacho cheese Doritos, Welch's frozen fruit bars, Duncan Hines home-style vanilla frosting.
Vanilla frosting.
Schweppes ginger ale, diet ginger ale, Lipton iced tea, the instant iced tea, maraschino cherries. But what about things like Tylenol and children's vitamins?
Oh, no, it's incredible the stuff that red dye is in. It's not just red vines, although red vines has red dye. And I'm like, I'm a psychiatrist. Why do I care about red dye?
Right.
Because it can cause all sorts of psychiatric issues. And I had this boy I treated once who would just get negative,
right,
anxious,
you told me
violent, aggressive. And the parents brought him to me. And, you know, one of the things I like to do with patients is put them on an elimination diet. It's like, well, let's eliminate things that potentially could be ruining your life. And off of red dye, his behavior went to normal. Sweet, kind, helpful, which is nuts. And then we scanned him on red dye, and his brain looked like an explosion. There was just like way too much activity going on. And then we scanned him off, and it took on the pattern of a much more normal brain. So
I'm reading here, haven't those studies and that question that's been being raised since the 70s, correct?
Yes.
So they've been doing these studies, and they have been linking actually erratic behavior, aggressive behavior, possibly hyperactivity to red dye for a long time.
Right, and not just red. I mean, yellow also has been problematic, but it's the artificial food dyes, artificial colors, and artificial preservatives that have been known to cause learning problems, behavior problems, mood problems in some people. Now, it's not in everybody, but if you're vulnerable to this, you have to be super careful, which I always say, read the ingredients on labels. And
it's not just, so according to some of this research, it's not just the dye. So the dye has actually been shown to be harmful. And in some cases, because of course the FDA has approved it, and of course the companies making these products are saying there's nothing wrong with the dye. Well, after doing studies, some of the problems have not been necessarily always linked to the dye, but some of the chemicals in the dye. So that's contained in the dye. So here's what's I thought was really interesting. The food industry dumps 15 million pounds of artificial dyes into your food every year. Over 40% of that is red dye number 40. So I thought that was really fascinating. And then in 2011, even the FDA acknowledged the growing body of evidence that red dye is a problem that's linked to erratic behavior.
But they didn't get rid
of it. So
it's because in the United States, if you have a problem, you pay for it. Where in a country like the United Kingdom, if you have a problem, everybody pays for it.
Right.
And so the United Kingdom actually took out artificial dyes.
So did Australia. It's been
preservatives
banned.
out of their food supply because they realized that it caused problems in some children. And it's not just children.
Right.
I had a patient once who came to see us from Minnesota. And we scanned him, and his brain was troubled, and his marriage was on the rocks. And he said, I want you to do one more scan on me on MSG. And I'm like, on MSG, because MSG is in everything.
Right.
And they often don't even label MSG. It's called natural flavoring. And I said, well, why? And he said, whenever I get MSG, my temper becomes violent. And so we scanned him on MSG. He had a big slug of it. We then scanned him. His brain turned into similar to the scans I've done of murderers.
That's crazy.
And so I showed him, his regular scan and then his MSG scan. And I said, you have two choices. You could hold the MSG, or I could actually put you on medicine to protect your temper. Now, in my head, I'm going, he's going to choose, well, I'll just not eat anything with MSG in it.
But
and he said,
it's too hard, you don't know.
I want you to give me the medicine. And I'm like, why? Just what you said.
Because I wouldn't want to go to jail because someone put MSG in something.
He said they don't even have to label it.
Right, it's not fair.
It's often labeled natural flavors.
Right.
If I'm out at a restaurant and even
It's
if
not
I
fair.
ask and they get it and I explode, my wife said she's going to leave me.
Right, or
And
you
I
go to
can
jail.
tell you, if she leaves me, I'm going to get seriously depressed because I love her. And how unfair is that things that are being put in our food that not everybody reacts to, but there's a certain percentage of us that react negatively to these chemicals. And, and I know some of you are like, oh, Dr. Amen, aren't you being, dramatic? Because, if you hear the stories of people who come to the Amen clinics, it's dramatic and it's not necessary.
Not necessary.
Because there's so many other ways to make foods taste great and foods that are clean for you.
So you've made a couple of great points with patients that have pretty dramatic issues when they have red dye or MSG. And yet 43% of child-oriented products contain red dye. 43%.
Right,
That's
they want to make it
ridiculous.
red because red reminds them of red vines or Kool-Aid.
And then red dye contains, red dye number 40 contains something called it's a crescidine, something like that, which is one of the chemicals I was telling you about that's in red dye. It's not the dye itself, but it's in the red dye that's believed to be cancer causing. So I thought that was pretty crazy. And yet, even though with all these petitions going around to take it out, the FDA still hasn't taken it out. We have other countries banning it, and we still don't even necessarily label everything that has it. I mean, at the very least, we should be labeling.
No, and the food companies, I think you should put calories on everything because I think of calories like money. But, there are lobbyist groups that argue against labeling. And how crazy is that? If you don't know what's in something, don't eat it.
Right.
The more you eat natural foods rather than processed foods, the better they are for you because whatever goes in your body, it turns into you.
Right.
And so if you're eating toxins or wearing toxins, that's a whole podcast we could talk about.
Absolutely.
And we did in our series on toxins. You just want to be very thoughtful about what you put in your body and what you allow in your children's bodies. So read the labels. Go natural. And why go organic? I get this question all the time. Oh, I read the studies. Organic doesn't matter. It's the same nutritional value. Yes, one is nutritional value. The other is nutritional value plus poison.
Right.
Right. What do pesticides do? They kill bugs. What is inside your gut? 100 trillion bugs making vitamins, neurotransmitters, hormones helping you with detoxification. It's critical to take care of your
So
gut.
there's one more point before we go, because just like with sugar, so we're telling them all these great tips. There's one problem. It doesn't say red dye number 40 always. Okay, so even if it's on the ingredients, just like with sugar, that's the thing. You have to know actually what to look for. So just like with sugar, which can have about 14 different names, red dye can have a bunch of different names. How about Allura Red? red 40, red number 40, F, D, and C red number 40, Allura red AC. That's a tricky one. Allura red AC.
Allura, that sort of sounds like a date.
Right. It kind of doesn't sound bad, right? It sounds benign. How about CI 16035?
Yeah, anything that says that on a label,
avoid.
Pass.
And then CI food red 17. So those are a few names that are really going to throw you for a loop, because how would you know? Right? They get tricky, just like putting MSG as natural flavoring.
What does our friend Mark Hyman say? If it grows on a plant,
right,
eat it.
If it's
made in a plant, don't eat it.
Right. If your grandmother wouldn't recognize it as food and she can't pronounce it, there you go. Right?
There you go.
All right.
Love you. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Everybody. Today we are going to talk about 6 ways to overcome mismatched anxiety levels. So what to do when your partner is driving you crazy.
Well, I didn't say that. I just said you're my partner. Aren't you glad you weren't inappropriate? No one knew, and you didn't know we were alive.
I am never.
He is. I know. I have to tell a story. I was doing book tour for Omni Diet. I was on the news. I was on Good Day New York, and he's with me, and we were mic'd, and we're sitting on the couch, and he started saying very inappropriate things, forgetting that he was mic'd.
Marital thing.
Yeah, but they were very inappropriate. They were not appropriate.
You're going to start this live with
I'm just saying. You have to be careful what you say.
Mismatched.
Someone is always listening.
All right, pop quiz. On a scale of 1 to 10, where's your anxiety levels these days? So 1 is really awful. 10 is peaceful. Where's Tana's?
Well, I was just telling you, about a year and a half ago, I was thinking to myself, how is it possible for my life to be so perfect? Like, it just feels so peaceful and so good. And then about a month ago, I was like, just like, and I'm not generally an anxious person like that. So I might cause a little anxiety, but I don't usually get much anxiety.
She causes.
And I'm telling you, I have been so anxious.
So 1 to 10.
I wouldn't say 10. I would say probably more like 7, but that's a lot for me.
All right. So 1 is none and 10 is terrible.
Yeah,
You're
6, 7 is high. That's high for me.
Yeah, and I think the weeks of the
rioting.
protests and rioters.
The protests didn't bother me. It's the rioting started to scare me, and I was like, okay, this is getting out of control. Like, it's starting to freak me out now. So, like the quarantine, everybody was inside. I could see people getting depressed. That didn't affect me as much. It was when I felt a lack of control, the chaos, that scared me.
And what's your anxiety level? Mine's 2.
Yours was more, we were mismatched because your anxiety didn't go up at all during the social stuff. Well, I don't know about not at all, but not much. But your anxiety over the virus is much higher than mine.
It is. I don't
we're
want
mismatched.
it. I have a dad that died, at least partly from it. I have no interest in the virus. And I think that don't worry, be happy people, the people who show up without masks and want to shake your hands, I'm not happy about that.
Yeah.
It's like, because we have to protect not only ourselves,
we need to be protecting other people.
Mm-hmm.
So, what about the girls? Anxiety levels initially was really high and had nothing to do with the virus. It had to do with not seeing their
Quarantine,
friends.
yeah.
And not
Well,
seeing
and
their
Chloe
friends.
losing a job, and she had just gotten her license. That was really
Well, and what about you that are watching? What about your kids? And the whole idea of this talk is what happens when anxiety's mismatched.
Mm-hmm.
When one is high and one is low. I mean, when they're both high, there's trouble going on because neither one of you are really processing effectively, because anxiety decreases processing skills. Negativity is not great for your brain. So you can just imagine with all the negativity over the last 18 weeks. Can you believe it? We're 18 weeks into this thing. My goodness, pretty soon it's going to be like half a baby.
Right.
So, how about at your home? And do you feel safer at home, but your partner wants to go on vacation? I just had that talk with someone today. Or are you the one who wants to host a party, but your family?
I had that talk today too, because Chloe wants to have a party here, and I'm like,
no.
We'll have a small get together, and then need to stay outside. But
so, and when we had my dad's funeral, I was like 50 people. No, that's a bad idea. If you're a 9, but your significant other is a 4 or a 2, and your kids are a 2, you've got an anxiety mismatch. So, and I think early on in the pandemic, our anxiety sort of went together.
I know we were totally the same, and that made me feel really good. So I'm always prepared. Like I'm prepared for everything. So I just it's how I managed it's how I feel now. It's how I feel prepared. It's how I sort of control my anxiety is by always being prepared. And so when the quarantine hit, I kind of felt like, oh, I got this, because I've been preparing for a long time for something weird to happen. And I just immediately kicked into gear, started cleaning stuff, stocking up on food, which I already had most of, but trying to make sure we had everything. And you were just like right there. Okay, let's make sure, you were helping me get everything together. And I'm like, oh, this is really comforting. And I realized, and I told you, I feel so comforted because we were like on the same page. During the social stuff, you weren't on the same page with me. And it just made my anxiety kick in harder, and I dug my heels in. I'm like, I'm going to go to the mountains by myself, find a cabin, buy a cabin somewhere. Like I got really upset. I want to be away from everybody. I want no people around.
And like now, I was just looking at her. Who stole my wife?
Yeah, no,
where's my best friend?
Well, and sometimes your anxiety is triggered by something.
And
in
for
your
me,
past.
I remember the Vietnam protests. I remember the riots in the 60s and Watts in LA.
But if I hear one more time, nothing bad happens where we live, I'm like going to lose my mind. Like nothing bad ever happens here. I'm like, no.
We live in one of the safest communities.
It doesn't matter.
In the world.
No.
But
one thing I want to say is your anxiety can be triggered by, like for me, the reason the protests triggered me, the reason that the quarantine didn't is because I'm a nurse and I kind of felt like, oh, I've got some training and trying to like keep things safe. But the protest triggered sort of my own trauma from the past when I was a child, when I felt out of control. So things from your past can sort of affect how you handle things going forward.
Well, and I have this formula I've been talking about, TLC, that resilience goes when you see a crisis as temporary, as local, even though it's a global pandemic. Here we are in Orange County, what's happening locally, and control. What can I do and what can't I do, right? There's certain things I can't do. I can't control what's going on with other people, but I can control myself. And certainly I've learned, having 4 children now, I just cannot control teenagers. Try as I might, it just isn't going to happen. I could nudge, I can influence, I can try not to
also
yell at.
Well, what I've learned is one thing I got really good at is I cannot control what you do, but I can very much control what I do, like where my car goes, what my money gets spent on, and what I spend my time and energy on.
TLC, temporary local control. Do what you can do. So an anxiety mismatch during a pandemic can increase tension, fear, worries, frustration, irritability, relationship problems. Now, what it does is cortisol. So you're stressed, and I think of cholesterol as the mother hormone. It's really important not to be too high, but you also don't want it to be too low. But when you're stressed, you use your hormone precursors, go to cortisol and adrenaline, and just completely messes with estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So you're so stressed, you don't want to be touched. Your sex life can not be good. And that's part of what can cause
and if
relationship
you're not
problems.
sleeping, it affects your sleep. And if you're not sleeping, then your hormones are further disrupted and it becomes this vicious circle.
Right. So at Amen Clinics, we've had so many patients asking for help on how to deal with family members. In fact, we keep track of that every day on why people call, and marital issues went way up. And so we're going to write a blog on the number one thing you should ask yourself before you ask someone to marry you or before you say yes. And the number one thing you should ask yourself is, can I live with this person in a pandemic? Can I be with them 24/7? Because golf is gone, going to the casinos gone, going to bars gone, going to Laker game gone. And I have the answer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we actually did.
Because you're my best friend.
We did really well during that. I freaked out, like I said, when I felt the lack of control. Yeah.
So,
until then.
We were talking about our own mismatched anxiety. You're always
Everybody's
prepared.
got mismatched anxiety somewhere. Yeah. So hold on. So now, though, he actually appreciates it. This is one good thing that came out of it. He used to be annoyed by how much time and energy I spent preparing, because I prepare for disasters. I'm one of the local volunteers in my community for disaster preparation, and if there's a disaster, we show up. That kind of a thing. So I'm one of my local volunteers in my city. And so he used to kind of give me a hard time about how much time and energy I spent on it. And now all of a sudden he's like, I really appreciate that about you. I'm never going to give you a hard time again. See, so some good things can come out of these things.
I know it's going to cost me money. All right. 6 things you can do to cope with mismatched anxiety. Number 1, avoid the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. You want to ruin a relationship? This is research from John Gottman. He talks about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Contempt. Talk down to your partner. That is actually one of the predictors of divorce. Criticize. Don't look at you, just look at them and complain. Defensiveness. No matter what it is they say, it's like you wear Teflon, you don't hear it, bounces back.
Or the automatic no is another one.
Or stonewalling, where you just won't deal with the situation. So avoid those. Number 2, share the reasons behind your anxiety. Talk it through. And for the person who's less anxious, you want to be a good listener. So I pride myself on being a good listener. And I'm a good listener when I've slept, when I ate in a healthy way, when I don't believe every stupid thing I think.
Well, and we all have times where we don't think something is important that our partner might think is more important. But one thing you're good at is, even if there's times where you don't think what I'm stressed out about is important and you don't understand why I'm stressed out about. But if I stop you and go, I need you to listen. This is important to me. You will, even if you don't feel like it is, you will stop and go, okay, I hear you. So I might have to say that to you,
And
but
then
you
we're
will
gonna
do
be
it.
looking at buying a mountain.
Yes.
Somewhere,
Yes, somewhere
in the
completely
wilderness.
isolated. So might be in like
So
Antarctica.
communicate. 3, don't be too controlling. Making ultimatums and then attempting to keep others in lockdown can backfire. Teens tend to rebel when parents are overly controlling. And, I think initially our teenager just freaked out, really. But when you took time to really listen and help her understand why she reacted, it actually brought you back to a time in your 20s when you were diagnosed with cancer.
The lack
And
of
you just
control.
like couldn't believe it.
Mhm.
Right. And so
It's
she
like
couldn't believe
you
it.
keep saying, no, this isn't happening.
Create clear goals. I just did this with one of my couples on the phone today. Love doing it. All businesses have business plans. They have mission statements. You need a plan for your relationship. And ours, and it's basically been the same since the beginning. What do we want? A kind, caring, loving, supportive, passionate relationship. Always want that. Don't always feel like that. Get all sorts of rude thoughts in my head.
Like I'm leaving and going to a mountain cabin by myself.
And when we get settled and we go, well, if I say this, does it fit the goal? If I do this, does it fit the goal? And I never want you to feel like I don't love you or I don't trust you or I don't care about you. And so not believing, Jerry Seinfeld once said, the brain is a sneaky organ. We all have weird, crazy, stupid, sexual, violent thoughts that no one should ever hear. And so before you let that thought get out of your mouth, ask yourself, does it fit? Will it get me what I want in my relationship? But first you have to know what you want. So clear goals help lower high anxiety. One of my favorite supplements is Happy Saffron. There's 3 of us in this house are taking Happy Saffron just to, during a stressful time, helps to boost your mood, lower anxiety. We also at BrainMD make something called GABA calming that helps just to take the edge off. Alcohol's not the thing.
I felt like a drug dealer the other day. Chloe was really, really anxious about something. Do you remember that? She was like crying and anxious, and she comes and she's like, I need to go for a drive. I need to talk to you about something. I'm like, what? We get in the car. She's like, I really need some GABA. Someone give me some GABA. It was the weirdest conversation, but it really helps her settle down.
So diaphragmatic breathing, killing the ants, anti-anxiety foods. We're having salmon tonight in a little bit. I'm pretty excited about that. And the last thing is encourage healthy anxiety. The don't worry, be happy people, they die the earliest from accidents or preventable illnesses. You want to have enough anxiety, especially during a global pandemic. So wash your hands, wear a mask, be thoughtful, be careful. Please don't cough on anybody. Let's be thinking in a smart, useful way. So we hope this is helpful. If you have mismatched anxiety and you feel like you're out of control, call us. Go to amenclinics.com. We'd be happy to help. We see people from had calls from 155 countries.
Someone from Nova Scotia on my chat today. It was so fun with Dr. Criado from Chicago.
I bet that was fun.
He's all over. Awesome. He's awesome. He's our sleep doctor. So if you're having trouble sleeping, he's amazing. And
so how can people follow you on social media?
So I'm on Instagram right now. I'm doing a live, obviously, Tana Amen. And I'm also on Facebook, Tana Amen BSNRN. Yep. And I have free recipes on my website. So tanaamen.com. You can get free recipes. You can get blogs, all sorts of free fun
stuff.
And
we just went over 8.5 million.
Podcast, yes.
On our podcast, Brain Warriors Way. So if you like this, brainwarriorswaypodcast.com. You can listen to about 700 podcasts.
And we love answering questions. So please send us your questions, your comments, your concerns, what's going on in your life. Like, we love to do that. So
Great. Hope you have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Are you looking for ways to heal ADD, enhance your memory, conquer anxiety, depression, insomnia, autism, and other conditions? Hi, I'm Dr. Daniel Amen. We provide courses based on what we've learned over 30 years of clinical practice. We also offer accredited courses geared to physicians, therapists, and students looking to get ahead. Are you ready to change your brain and change your life? Get started today.
Hey. So, 15 minutes. We're going to answer as many questions as we can. And I recruited my best friend to help. Question number 1. If anti-anxiety meds aren't good for the brain, what's a better way to deal?
So are they always bad for the brain?
Well, no. But anti-anxiety meds like benzos, Xanax, Klonopin, Valium, once you start them, your brain will then need them in order for you to feel normal. So I'm not a fan. I rarely prescribe benzos.
Are there any that are good for the brain? Or not? Are there any that are less harmful?
Well, sometimes I might use anti-seizure meds. They can help lower anxiety. Sometimes I'll use Buspar. But often magnesium and GABA.
Right. GABA really works for me.
Theanine. And we'll try natural things to help with anxiety. At BrainMD, GABA calming, magnesium, chewable. As I said, I'm just not a fan of Xanax because once you start it, you're going to have a heck of a time stopping. Question 2, if you could bullet your top 5 things to do daily for brain health, what would it be? Why don't you pick 3 and I'll do 2?
Okay. So top 5 things. Number 1, exercise for me. I wake up and I know what yours is going to be, but I wake up and I immediately
Did you think I was going to say sex?
Well, that's just a given. I was going to, I didn't think we were going to mention that on our live chat, but anyways, I immediately thank God for 2 or 3 things I'm grateful for.
So gratitude,
exercise, and meditation.
And then I would add food. So important. Your body, including your brain, makes itself new all the time based on the food you eat. So whole food, colorful food, food that's high in fiber, nutrients, and healthy fat. And then for me, I think supplementation is really important. So I make you a shake every day that has Bright Minds powder, Neuro Greens, smart mushrooms. I mean, it's just loaded. So those are.
And my bonus is shut off the news.
Is self-made popcorn a healthy snack?
So here's the problem with popcorn. Even if it's organic, you're going to eat it organic and make it an occasional treat, not a regular thing, because it has the worst fatty acid profile of just about any grain. It's a grain, not a vegetable. It tends to cause inflammation and bloating. Unfortunately, 90% of it is genetically modified, 95% maybe.
Yeah, so we're generally not.
So an occasional treat, make it organic, and just know that you are probably going to bloat up a little bit.
All right, we have to keep going. This is your question. If family members keep you in fear and anxiety, how close do you stay to them?
So boundaries are important. You can love people, you can forgive them, and you can love them from a distance. I love you and I will miss you. My favorite line for people who are not safe.
Another question, this one's for me. Have you ever been to Lebanon? Yes, I have. I actually sponsored an orphan through Christian Children's Fund and got to go visit him. I was really excited. We played table tennis.
I want to go.
Which one of your books would you recommend to a 19-year-old?
15-year-old. Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. How about your books?
Definitely my most recent one. Depending on what the kid's been through, but Relentless Courage of a Scared Child, if they have any kind of trauma.
And my new book coming out in just a couple of weeks, perfect for a 19-year-old. Your Brain is Always Listening. Tame the Hidden Dragons that control your happiness, habits, and hang-ups. Any plans to open a clinic in Denver? No, but we have a brand new clinic in Dallas, and we're working on a new clinic in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
So we're getting a little more spread out.
This one for you. How do I learn to listen to my gut?
So that can be in two ways. You can either be talking about actually for food, so like actually listening to your gut as far as nutrition, or listening to your gut as far as intuition. So they say people who have been through trauma have better intuition. What that really is we have a heightened acuity, like a more acute sense of what's happening around us because it's a survival skill. So whenever I get that spidey sense, I listen to it. Now I might be wrong, but I listen to it initially because that spidey sense has saved my life way more than once. It's called The Gift of Fear. So one book I strongly recommend, I keep a stack of them to give out to people. The Gift of Fear. It's a great book, especially for young women going to college. Just a fantastic book.
How are you feeling since the vaccine? I feel fine.
Totally fine.
Is OCD curable? And the answer is yes. But at Amen Clinics, we'll scan you first to have a sense what's going on in your brain, and then we will target the treatment specifically to your brain. How to handle recurrent negative thoughts.
So killing the ants. So we actually work on this with our entire family. That's one of the things we've done through the pandemic.
On ants.
Yeah, so killing the ants. So the best thing we can tell you in this short amount of time is start questioning your thoughts. Don't believe every thought you have. Talk back like you did when you were a teenager. And eventually get to the point where you're not only talking back to the thoughts and challenging them, turn it around to its opposite. So
where you bring your attention determines how you feel.
Right. So
whenever you feel sad, mad, nervous, out of control, write down what you're thinking and then just go. Is it true? Carry those 3 words around with you.
And then switch it. So if you have a thought, she's a witch, and you get to the very end of it, and it's like, I'm a witch. Oh, ow. But is that ever true? Can you ever think of a time you were a witch? And it just cracks the thought.
What do you think of EMDR for trauma treatment?
Oh my gosh. Literally life-saving for me. Transformative.
What book have you written to overcome anxiety? And it's just so common. I've written about it in Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, Feel Better Fast, and Make It Last.
Our new show.
But Your Brain is Always Listening. There's The Anxious Dragon.
Right. And our new PBS show, which comes out at the end of this month, at the end of February.
End of February.
The end of February is Overcoming Anxiety, Trauma, Depression, and Grief.
Does prayer and meditation have the same effect on the brain?
Similar, right?
Very similar effects.
Settles down the emotional brain and fires up the thoughtful part of the brain, the frontal lobes.
Right. How do I push past depression to help myself? You remember what that's like.
Like nothing I have ever experienced. Just horrible. So yeah, that was a journey.
So head to head against antidepressant medication. Exercise. Walk like you're late. 45 minutes, 4 times a week, even if you don't feel like it. Omega-3 fatty acids, especially high in EPA, learning to kill the ants. So that's the first thing to do. We make something called Happy Saffron. In fact, if you pre-order the book, go to yourbrainisAlwaysListening.com. We'll actually give you a free coupon for a bottle of Happy Saffron, which has been shown in 21 randomized controlled trials to help with depression. So exercise, fish oil, not believing every stupid thing you think, Happy Saffron. And then if those things aren't working, get evaluated because medication can be really helpful.
But going on the wrong medication can ruin your life. And 2 things I wish I had known that I did not know back then: the power of food with your mood. I just didn't know it. And meditation and prayer. I mean, it's just, they're so helpful as well.
How do I stop emotional eating?
Oh, wow. That's more than we're going to do in this one. That's, so actually food matters. What you choose to eat can actually help you with your food, but addressing whatever's underneath it. So EMDR for trauma. So actually addressing what's going on.
You're just chronically stressed.
Right.
So
Supplements
engaging
too.
in a regular meditative, prayerful practice can help. But don't let your blood sugar go low. If you let your blood sugar go low, you're going to start gorging.
Eating more carbs makes you crave more carbs. The more carbs you eat, the more you crave. But you also need to address what's going on underneath all of that.
Okay. 3 minutes. How do I overcome panic attacks? Do this breathing pattern. 3 seconds in, 6 seconds out, twice as long to breathe out. Do that 10 times. Whatever thoughts you have, write it down. Don't leave because you're having a panic attack, because then it will control you. And then certain supplements like GABA calming, theanine, happy saffron can be super helpful. How do you heal from being a daily marijuana smoker? It's stop smoking and then engage in regular brain healthy habits. The other thing you can do, Tana and I have recorded almost 900 Brain Warriors Way podcasts. You can go to brainwarriorswaypodcast.com, start downloading it. It'll really teach you how to be armed, prepared, and aware to win the fight of your life. So
I'm a big advocate of replace, don't erase. So that's a habit that you have. So find a healthy habit to replace it when you feel like you're in that place. So what is a healthier thing you can do? You know, go for a walk, call a friend, like do something in that moment that you need, that you can do that's going to replace that habit.
Best place to start a month brain detox. Well, the best time to start is now. We actually are not fans of detoxing. We're a fan of always detoxing. Why would you ever put something toxic in your body? It's sweat with saunas that helps detox your body.
Increase your hydration. Cut out, sugar and processed foods. So that's the best place to start.
Okay. Last question, because we're running out of time. What is your morning ritual?
Oh, I love our morning ritual. I wake up and you make me my almond milk latte. You make me my smoothie. We sit and chat for about 15, 20 minutes before workouts and then get started with our day.
I start every day with today is going to be a great day. I end every day with what went well today. And I really spend time. They're not just, answer this question. I really spend time thinking about and meditating to direct my mind. And then as I go through my day, I ask myself, is this good for my brain or bad for it? Talking to you, always good for our brain. Thanks so much.
Have a good day.
If you're enjoying the Brain Warriors Way podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, feel free to give us a review or 5-star rating, as that helps others find the podcast.
If you're interested in coming to Amen Clinics, use the code PODCAST10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com. For more information, give us a call at 855-978-1363.